Apologies if I have to run off. If there's a beep, that means the oven is ready for dinner. So we have the UFC 206 prediction video here, which is occurring this Saturday, of course. It's this weird, bizarre card with the needless interim featherweight title bout between Max Holloway and Anthony Pettis. Kind of ludicrous, but let's roll with it. Let's roll with the punches. Okay, at the bottom of the card we have, and I'm just going to throw this out here. This is a bizarrely, really good card on the lower end. Like, a lot of very interesting and exciting fights. It's just that the main card, not even the main card, to be honest, because the main card is pretty good, like Kennedy versus Gastelum, Swanson versus Korean Superboy, Cerrone versus Brown. These are all kind of pay-per-view main cards. It's just they kind of lacks a main event, and I think they wanted to solve that with the interim title fight, which doesn't really add any value to the card. I mean, it's still a good fight, but it would have been 5 rounds as a main event, and the fact that it's for a meaningless title doesn't really give it anything additional. So anyways, Zach Makowski, Dustin Ortiz. I was very high on the Dustin Ortiz bandwagon. His kind of boxer, wrestler type of deal he had out of Rufus Sport, but I kind of gotta say, soured on him with his losses to Wilson Hayes and then to Who's Here for Miga, guys who, if he was really going to go to where he maybe is capable of, he would have probably won those fights. And Makowski really is in the same grain. Like, it's almost a trio of guys who have not fought Demetrius Johnson but are very, very good fighters. I don't see, he wasn't able to stop them from implementing their games. I don't see him being able to stop Makowski from being able to implement his, which is a very scrambling heavy wrestling game that you think Ortiz would be good to defend against, but we've seen that it's just not. Going with Makowski here by unanimous decision as he kind of out-wrestles Ortiz in an entertaining fashion, because I think these are both scramblers, so it'll be fun. I think flyweight's always like that. It's hard to have a truly bad flyweight fight. I think it's a good fight, but yeah, I think Makowski will continue to send Ortiz back to kind of these setbacks, and he really needs to show something new. So he needs a new wrinkle in his game, or needs to up one of the existing portions of his game considerably. Jason Shago versus Rustam Habilov. Two guys who are kind of grapplers first. Shago likes to play kind of like a kicking, striking game. It usually works pretty well for him, but Habilov is just the kind of guy that if you can't stop his takedowns, he's going to take you down. He's going to do so in an emphatic fashion quite often. And he's going to control you, if not finish you. And I kind of see the latter here, or the former, I should say, with Habilov just being a much better wrestler. And Shago is not dynamite on the feet. Like Habilov has, had reasonable levels of success standing with, guys much better than Jason Shago. This is a guy who's only lost to Adriano Martins and Vincent Henderson during his run in the UFC. There are, frankly, just better fighters on this list. Leandro Silva, Chris Wade, Norman Park, George Masvidal. That's probably about it. We get further back, they're worse than Sago. Like Jason Sago, would like to see him do well. Just don't think he does well in this matchup. Habilov by decision, because he's not really a huge finisher. Lando Venata, John McDessie. Okay, so excited for this fight. Venata made a big fan out of me in his fight with Tony Ferguson. I like really almost every element of his stand-up game. Offensively, defensively, I think there are some things that leave something to be desired. And I think he may be a little small for the division. Those are my two main concerns. In Magdesi, you of course have this whirlwind of spinning attacks, interesting stuff on the feet. Really interesting striker. I'm really looking forward to seeing these two guys exchange on the feet. I think Venata's speed and innate power should be enough to get this done. Like, McDessie's kind of been a good gatekeeper for people. Like, if you look at his record, pull that up real quick. The guys he beats are guys who kind of aren't really going anywhere. Like, you're looking at the Shane Campbells, the Mehdi Bad Dads, the Darren Crookshanks of the world, Sam Stouts, and the guys that beat him. I mean, if you take away Donald Cerrone, I mean, you got Anthony Njokuani on this list, Alan Patrick, Yancy Medeiros, all the guys who I think, like, Venata can, if not already, is better than. So, Lando Venata, a decision wouldn't surprise me, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say he stops John McDessie with a TKO. Mitch Gagnon versus Matthew Lopez. Going with Gagnon. I think Lopez, at this point, it was great. Like, he's a really good grappler, really athletic guy. I think a real bright prospect for the future. I just think that, to a certain degree, his inability to not be put on his back, and against, like, the level of talent we're talking about in the UFC's bantamweight division, it's going to be very hard for him to win from the bottom. Gagnon, I think, put him on his back. He's a super powerful dude. Dangerous submission guy, but largely in a more of a sort of a wrestler kind of way, power chokes and so on. I say that Lopez probably survives for 15 minutes and goes to the judges' scorecards, but the Gagnon wins fairly comfortably. Valley Letourneau versus Viviane Pereira. Not super interested in this fight. Letourneau via decision, probably, because at strawweight she seems to have lost like a little bit of finishing power. I think she cuts too much weight. She's an example of a woman who could really be serviced by a flyweight division, like really, really badly. Yeah, that's kind of really all there's to say on that. So Letourneau, wouldn't be surprised by a stoppage, but I'm going to go decision. Olivier Aubin-Mercier and Drew Dober. Oh, I have gone back and forth a lot on this fight. I like Mercier, but there's a lot of times that I feel like against well-rounded competition at UFC levels, his kind of limited takedown game and grappling, the fact that his stand-up isn't great, is just not going to serve him very well. And I'm tempted, very tempted to say that Dober is the kind of guy that can beat him because he's reasonably difficult to take down, pretty good on the feet. On the ground, he's not helpless. If you look at, like this is the thing. Dober is distinctly better than anyone that Mercier has ever beaten. We're talking Jake Lindsay, David Michaud, Tony Sims, Thibault Gauthier. His best win is probably Tony Sims. This would be the biggest win of his career, but by that same token, it would be the biggest win of Dober's career, whose wins in the UFC are over Jason Gonzalez, Scott Holtzman, Jamie Varner, who was really a shell of himself, Tony Sims, ironically, before he got to the UFC along with TJ O'Brien, were his big wins. That being said, I think to a certain extent, Mercier is not necessarily better than the guys he's already lost to in Efren Escudero, Nick Hine, and Sean Spencer. In fact, I think there's a lot of similarities to Nick Hine, but with a lot less ability on the feet. I'm going to ride the underdog here. I'm going to go Drew Dober by decision. I may regret that. I may change that, but for now, I'm going with Dober. This is a really interesting fight, but it interesting in some ways for a bad way. Nikki Thrills, Nikita Krylov versus Misha Serkinov. Going Serkinov here. Krylov's style leaves him open to things that I think Serkinov can do with his grinding, very solid grappling style. And submission wouldn't surprise me. It also wouldn't surprise me to see him wear down Krylov and take a decision or a submission. That being said, Krylov is always possible to end the fight, both on the feet and on the ground. He's got a variety of interesting submission holds. He's got explosive like that. ability to end fights. Just ask Ed Herman, ask Stanislav Nedkov to a certain extent, ask Cody Donovan. Either way, though, I think this is a win-win. I think both of these guys are very bright prospects within the 205 division, and it's a division that desperately needs to start getting stars. And I think it's going to be a good fight. I think it's going to be one that elevates one of these guys to borderline top 10 status, and really tells us a lot about both of them, I think. But I am rocking Serkinov. Jordan Mean versus Emil Weber Meek. The question for me, like, Mean is the guy I'd pick on this one. Weber Meek is... I mean, he's riding high off of the Rusmar Palhares knockout. And that was fantastic. Do not get me wrong. He's got amazing knockout power. But he's not a tremendously great striker. He had the weird thing with that he may have been on PEDs outside the UFC. Interesting there. Meehan has his own thing where, of course, not too long ago, his dad had a court case about a sexual assault deal, and Jordan himself had retired from MMA and is now back. So a lot of baggage on both these fighters. I'm gonna kind of let the baggage kind of cancel each other out, and then go with the fact that I believe that Meehan is the faster, a little bit more diverse striker, more familiar with MMA success and MMA in general, has options like takedowns and ground game that he could probably use that I don't think Weber has. So I'm going to rock Jordan Meehan to win a decision. Tim Kennedy versus Kelvin Gastelum. I have no faith in Gastelum to win this fight. He's coming up to middleweight, where I think he's going to be a little too small. Needs to really get his weight under control and control to get down to 170. Him and Johnny Hendricks are like my two pet peeves from that division that, they should be there. I think they have the build to be there, and they don't. And I think it's things that are under their control to a certain degree. Kennedy, I think, is the better striker. I think that better wrestlers have tried to take down Kennedy and failed to control him. I think he's the better grappler if the fight does go to the ground, although Gastelum does have like some pretty sweet taking the back and rear naked choke stuff. But yeah, Kennedy by decision, because I think Gastelum's tough enough to go 15 minutes with him. But I just don't see where he necessarily threatens him. Cub Swanson versus Doo Ho Choi, which is basically Cub Swanson versus his younger self. In a lot of ways, these two are both crazy, with really not a hell of a lot of regard for technique or defense. Technique to a certain degree, but very much defense. I'm going with Doo Ho Choi. Cub Swanson has really disappointed me lately. He seems to be at the end of the line. He seems hurtable at times. He was lackluster in both the wins over Kawajiri and Diaz. Had a really, really bad time with Max Holloway. But looked pretty good against Frankie Edgar. But yeah, for the last 2 years, I can't say a lot of good things about Cub Swanson at this point. I think what made him a success is to a certain extent gone, which was his reasonable durability, explosiveness, and ability to create creative offense. And Doo Ho Choi has a lot of the latter part I was talking about and doesn't have nearly as deteriorated of a chin. So I'm going with Choi via TKO. Matt Brown versus Donald Cerrone. I'm rocking Donald Cerrone. Brown is soft to the body, and Cerrone will hit him there. Ironically, Cerrone might also be a little bit soft to the body with, of course, his notable ATV accident where part of his stomach was taken out. Or not stomach, it was colon, stomach, something like that. Something down here is missing. It came up when he was when they were talking about weight cutting and taking away the IVs. But Cerrone is the better striker. Brown's not the type of guy. I mean, Brown did take down Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and ground on him, but that was when Wonderboy was very deficient, both from a ground standpoint and a clinch standpoint and a wrestling standpoint, and Cerrone's not. Cerrone's a fantastic grappler, a pretty good counter wrestler, very good in the clinch. Not that Brown winning this would be shocked, because Brown's a warrior, but taking Cerrone via TKO. Max Holloway versus Anthony Pettis. All right, so I was very, very underwhelmed by Anthony Pettis' featherweight debut. He looked pretty bad against Charles Oliveira, and I think the irony is that in going down to featherweight, he may have exasperated some of the problems that he had at lightweight, which is when you don't give him time and space to work, and you pressure him, and you're fast, and you're not overwhelmed by his speed, you could have a lot of success against Anthony Pettis, and that's, I think, actually going to happen more at 145 than 155. I think to a certain degree he'll be able to stop more takedowns, but he'll have a lot more guys who can kind of do some of the stuff that Edson Barboza did to him, some of the stuff that other people have done with their just combination striking. I think all the way back to the Bart Palashevsky fight, which, people are like, ooh, that's a long time ago, but to be honest, Anthony Pettis, the blueprint for beating Anthony Pettis is kind of the same still. Not that everyone can do it, but that if you can be aggressive with your striking, you can pressure him, and you can make him, you can exploit some of his lack of fundamentals in the stand-up game and in the wrestling game, you can win the fight, and I think Holloway can do that. So I'm going to surprise possibly some people. I don't know. Maybe people thought I was going to do this, but I'm going to rock Max Holloway to win the interim title. I think that Max's game is just really coming together. I mean, there's a lot of volume kickboxing there with some power, some differences, some variety. There's a good pressure game there. I think he can utilize that. I think he's fast enough to cause problems for Pettis, which, again, we were talking about. Even at lightweight, sometimes he looked a little... If there wasn't a great speed differential, he had problems. Holloway should be able to get this done, really. And go on to face Aldo. Now, do I think he beats Aldo? I don't know. And Aldo's got the whole drama with... well, let's go into it. He's now the undisputed featherweight champion. I don't know if this division can ever recover from Hurricane Connor, but there is that. I'm going with Holloway, but I mean, this is a really interesting fight card, even if it doesn't have that marquee value to get people to pay for like the one fight, like a card with a big fight can do. It really lacks that, but it is a lot better than any fight night. We'll put it that way. Like the whole main card, I think is going to be exciting fights. I think relatively meaningful fights. Me and Meek, not really so much. I think, like in terms of ranking wise, those two guys are not really a factor in the welterweight division. But Krylov Serkinov is a great glimpse into the future on the Fox Sports 1 card. I think on the main card, Gastelum Kennedy is going to be fun. Swanson Choi is going to be tons of fun. Cerrone Brown, that's going to be a war. Holloway Pettis is going to be a really interesting fight and really fun. So I hope people enjoy this fight card despite the bad rap it's getting. I'll put it that way. And hopefully this whole thing with the featherweight division sorts itself out eventually. Anyways, usual links in the bottom, and have a nice day.